Okay, good. Yeah, it should work. Neat. Well, I don't have much for this meeting. I'm mostly working on the Hardware 28, the recurrent transfer improvements. So that's going well. I have an initial implementation, but I'm working on making all of the tests now. Unit test is kind of a pain because I have to update all of the existing stuff to the extensions. So that's going pretty well. I have a bunch of discussions to bring up afterwards on more like to get your feedback on some design decisions. But yeah, that's about it.
Okay. So I guess in terms of things that we're doing, I guess one of the more important things to announce is we're shifting. We're in the next release of Hive-D, basically dropping Ubuntu 20 and requiring Ubuntu 22 is the development platform. Couple reasons for that. I guess one is RocksDB. We're updating the version of RocksDB we're using inside Hive-D, and that version's we need to switch to Ubuntu 22 for that. Partly because it uses a more advanced file I/O library that allows faster file I/O access. And the other reason we're switching to Ubuntu 20 is just to get away from having to deal with both Postgres 12 and Postgres 14. Because those two versions of Postgres have been behaving quite differently at times in queries, and it's just more work for us to have to support fast queries that work equally well on both Ubuntu 20 and Postgres 12 and Postgres 14. So we'll be officially moving to Postgres 14 as well as part of the change. Other things we've done, we found some bugs in the uint 128 library that's inside Hive-D. It's inside FC, the FC library. So rather than work on fixing those bugs, it just made more sense to replace it with the standard. Nowadays there's a standard uint 128 library, and so we're using that instead. So we found issues along the way while we were testing that. So that's one of the things we've been working on. We'd made some tests for massive recurrent transfers just to test performance when there's a lot of them. I guess Hal was pretty aware of that probably. We fixed the problem related to truncation of account names that could happen when they were too long and the fixed string inside Hive-D. There's a bunch of small things we've done in there, but I guess one of the most significant things too we're doing is in Hive-D that's related to HAF is we're changing the way we're writing operations data into the Postgres database now. So instead of writing it as JSON text, we're writing in binary format, and that's allowing us to significantly shrink the size of a HAF database. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was around 700 or 800 gigabytes we're saving with that change, but it's been a while since I looked at the number, so I can't be sure. And we've been lately doing performance testing to just assure ourselves that it won't have a significant impact in terms of performance. There won't be any significant performance degradation with the switch, but seems like it's pretty good. So that's been going on, and I think those are probably the two most important things for other devs to be aware of is the Ubuntu 22 switch, and also that we're switching to a different internal format for the operations that are stored into the HAF database. So I guess with that, I'll pass it on to whoever wants to take it next. Maybe Imwatsi, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I've released the delegations API. It's got a number of endpoints, but the feature of note is that you get to see both incoming and outgoing delegations to an account, as well as an overview of balances and a history of all delegations made to or from an account. I also added delegations notifications to GNS, which is the global notification system. And yeah, from probably this month, I'll be focused on GNS. Currently working on author curation and comment benefactor rewards. There's more details about other projects that I'm working on. I think you can find them on the last post I made from the Freebeings account. It's quite a lot, and I think it would take up too much time to talk about here.
Okay.
So, yep, that's it from me.
Okay.
Cool.
I actually had a question for Bartek. So Bartek, when we switch the operations binary format, how much impact do we expect that to be on existing half applications?
Well, I hope interfaces to existing half applications should be not touched anymore. And hopefully all required changes which should be made is at most cast to the JSON when someone requires to process exact body of operation.
Okay, great. That's what I was hoping to hear.
At least our tests specific to HiveMind and specific to Half applications showed that there was no required significant changes to start such applications using new binary half.
Oh, great.
We
Well,
have, we have,
HiveMind's a good test because that does a lot.
yes, exactly. So I hope it will be completely invisible for most of the applications.
Awesome. Okay. I guess Archange, do you have anything you want to say?
Yes, I got a few questions from some people I had to talk with. They were asking me about if we have a long-term roadmap or a vision for what will be coming next, and they're always asking about smart contracts. So I know or you, Dan, you would like to see smart contracts on layer 2,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes they say it for when we need trust, it might be better to have them on layer 1. So what's your vision on this?
Yeah. So as far as the roadmap in general, we're definitely planning on putting something out soon. We've just been, I guess, tied up with basically finishing up tests we've been developing and cleaning up a lot of stuff before we get into too much new stuff. But I guess probably the next month we'll put out a roadmap. As far as smart contracts, yeah, that is, I can say right now, that's one of the big things on the roadmap coming up. And as far as, I think it's hard to address the issue here, first layer versus second layer, but I'll certainly write about why I don't think it makes any sense at all to do it on the first layer instead of the second layer. I've written some stuff in the past about it, but I can certainly write more if there's people who have questions on this issue, because I think it's pretty straightforward why it makes more sense to do it on the second layer than the first layer. So the implementation we're looking at for smart contracts is basically SQL is the language. So essentially, we see the smart contracts as being implemented on top of a half database. So essentially, someone will be able to come in and basically publish their contract as a transaction, and then they'll be able those contracts will be able to run on the half database itself. So half databases that choose to will be the smart contract processors. Does that make sense to you?
Okay.
And that should give us pretty much everything. I think that'll allow us to do a lot pretty cheaply, because SQL's already got nice security system in place for protecting one smart contract from messing with another. And we can do resource. It's already got a lot of things in there for handling resource limitations, so that, for instance, some contract doesn't tie up the database entirely, grab CPU. You can limit how long a query runs for before it'll just stop. So a lot of stuff there that's just really nice for us in terms of the smart contract environment that's well sandboxed, I think.
So your idea is to broadcast to SQL code to the blockchain that will send it to the half.
Yes. Yeah. So the half database will get that, like it gets all the other data from the blockchain. And then if you're running the smart contract app, if you will, on top of half, it would process those smart contracts, when it would, verify their, sound, and then those contracts would be available for, execution.
Yeah, but could a contract stored in a half server make change to the blockchain?
Absolutely. Yeah, sure. It wouldn't be it wouldn't be making changes in the blockchain. It'd be making changes in the half database.
And
So-
what about our contract changing balances from
No, a
accounts
smart,
or wanting
no,
to do
these smart contracts would not be able to change balances of half or of Hive or HPD. They'd only be able to change balances of new tokens.
Okay, so you can automate transfers or things like that using that kind of
Yeah,
contract.
Right. You could do all kinds of things at the, any you can do anything basically with the second layer tokens.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
I guess how
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Arcane.
No, thank you. I got my answer.
How you said
I gue-
questions?
I guess we will elaborate later more.
Yeah, I mean it's still early, right? I mean
Yeah.
this is just general vision of it. The details will come over time.
Yeah, but it looks smart to me. Good idea.
So yeah, I only have a bunch of questions. It's more of like, so basically we want to add a new ID to the recurrent transfer object to differentiate it between between transfers. So right now the way it's done is like basically you have a from and a to, and the pairs of the two basically makes it a unique transfer object. And I was thinking of either adding an ID as a unique ID for all the accounts. So if you're sending transfers out, you have to make a unique ID between all of your recurrent transfers, or only a unique ID between every from/to pairs. It's mostly a UX concern because I feel like as a developer, I'd be confused if like I could reuse like an ID was not unique on all of my accounts. But I can see the other view where you want to have it non-unique and only be shared between one specific transfer. So I kind of wanted to grab some feedback from you guys.
Okay, so just to restate this to be sure I understand what you're saying. So one way to do the primary issue originally is A wants to send to B. He sets up a recurrent transfer from A to B, and then A wants to set up a second recurrent transfer from A to B. Is that the initial impetus for this?
Yeah,
or is
exactly.
Okay. So based on that, the most obvious, simple thing at first to do would be you would say AB0 for the first transfer, and you'd say AB1 for the second transfer, or something like that, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And the question is...
So the other way you could do it is you could do each individual transfer as a separate one. So you could create an ID for each individual transfer in the recurrent transfer sequence. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, one way to be would be like either you do AB1 AC2 or you do AB1 and AC1.
Wait, how did C come in there?
C is like it's just another transfer. The idea is whether the ID is unique along all of the A transfers, or if the ID is unique per transfer pair, basically.
What's a transfer pair?
A transfer pair is basically a recurrent transfer between A and B. If it may be too hard to do via voice, I could just write it.
Yeah, I think so.
Personally, and looking from technical perspective, for example, construction of multi-index holding data inside Hive G-Node, I'm looking for solutions specific to from to pair. So unique ID should be specific to this identifiers pair. And this way we can easily extend current data structures by assigning 0 identifier to all existing recurrent transfers, and next incrementing this number for further ones. Also, I think it can be easy for UIs to select another ID because we offer APIs to iterate recurrent transfer for account pairs, and this way UI can find a number of existing recurrent transfers and select another valid ID from this set. So in my opinion, this identifier should be specific to from and to pair.
All right, that's helpful. Yeah, that sounds good. That's the way I started to implement it. But as I was doing it, I was like, maybe there is another way. So yeah, thanks. That's helpful. And that is it for me. Do you guys have anything else?
I don't.
Sorry, I have one thing probably for you. During working on recurrent transfer change, you probably had to prepare blockchain source code for another hard fork. Could you separate such changes and put to different merge requests to provide such code before all changes specific to recurrent transfers?
Oh, yeah, sure. I will do that.
Okay. Okay,
I was
thanks.
thinking of doing it because I saw that hard fork 29 was not in there yet. So yeah, I'll add that.
Okay, thanks.
Good. Anything else from anyone? Okay, that's it. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just wanted to ask, because I think Blocktrade mentioned something about token protocol at some point. I can't remember when. So I've been token protocol, like on layer 2, like what SMT was supposed to do.
Right.
So yeah, I've been kind of working on that. I haven't written a lot of code yet. I'm still doing a lot of like research and stuff. So I just wanted to know, like, are you working on that, or?
Well, not exactly, but kind of. So what we'll be working on is a smart contract platform. And so what the smart contract platform will allow you to do is, okay, so just to maybe make this clear. So right now, if you want to run a half app, the operator of the half server you have to get that half operator to install your app on his server, right? So, yep. Like the GNS, you're going to have to get somebody to run that on their half server. So yep. The idea is anyone who runs this smart contract app, if anybody who runs that on their half server, then that means they basically said that you can now run your smart contract on their server without having to specifically get them to install your smart contract app on their server. So that's kind of the difference between the two existing half apps. Existing half apps, you have to, the operator has to explicitly install it. Whereas if they install the smart contract app, then all the smart contracts that get created in the future will automatically run on their server. So beyond that, though, these apps will often, I think it's safe to say that these smart apps will work in many ways just like a half app, except that they're like auto installed, so to speak, and that they can interact with each other and more. Where right now, each half app has its own individual data space and there's no interaction between. Here you can build apps that are interacting with each other in a common data space. So yeah, I think if you start investigating how to handle tokens in SQL, that could be useful as a starting point for creating smart contracts for tokens that would run on half. So wouldn't want to say that what you're doing is necessarily going to be duplicated or wasted, but so it's something you could certainly continue looking at. But I think the ultimate platform for it has to be something that runs in a smart contract system, because you won't be able to people to be able to create tokens without having to always get permission from the half operators for those tokens.
Okay, I get it. So I have to keep that in mind as I'm designing it, that it should be able to. Well, yeah, maybe when I get more details on what.
Yeah, I mean, probably what you're going to start. I guess what you'd start with is I would be taking a look at existing smart contracts on other platforms for tokens and see how some of those are implemented. Obviously, there are going to be differences here because we're talking SQL instead of another language. But I'm just saying in terms of what their functionalities are and how they're implemented, that's something you could start looking at.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yep. Anyone else have any questions or things to bring up?
All right then. See you in a bit then.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.